Welcome everybody to our talk with Rafael Hostettler. I'm in the picture somehow.
Oh, it's okay.
Rafael Hostettler. After studying computer science at Zurich, he founded a medical startup, medtech startup, sorry. Then filed multiple patents, including on augmented reality and muscle cells in robots. And now he's here to talk to us about telepresence and his robot Roboy. And he will tell us how teleportation will solve aging, maybe twice. I'm very excited for that. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you very much. So this is a lot about bodies today. So I would like to all of you to get up. Please stand up. Good. We're going to do this a few times today, and we're going to do this just because I think it's really important to appreciate how crazy our bodies are. And I hope by the end of the talk today, you will understand how crazy it is. Let's start with who I am, and you get to sit down in a few seconds, I promise. In case the clicker works. Moment. Might take a few more seconds. Now, okay, so I'm Rafael. As you said, I founded a company called Devantro with the goal of becoming a robot. I also co-founded a medtech company. So I know all the pains about certifications, which you heard before. We have built 3 humanoid robots. With more than 4,000 people hugging our robots, which is rare in robot space. And I just have one goal in my life, and that's to stay alive indefinitely. And of course, young and healthy, because I mean, who wants to be 95 and old and so on? Now, to do this, I need to build robots to become one, because otherwise the proverbial bus will at some point, kill me, because there's just a non-zero probability that an accident happens, and accidents will eventually kill you. I'm still mostly a human, and I'm not a doctor. So I'm on my PhD for now, I think 8 years, but everything else is so much more interesting that I managed to finish it. So we're working with some of the most established labs on this planet, including, of course, TU Munich, but also ETH Zurich, Charité, and others, and a lot of very high-profile companies to do this. And I have 6 goals for today. And one of them is you get to sit down, I promise. Now, I want you to understand why some graphs can be terrifying and very personal, although they don't look like that in the beginning. Why the only robot you have in your life currently is a vacuum cleaner and maybe a lawnmower. Why the difference is between robots and the row-bodies. And that's a term I came up with because I felt robots has just too much baggage to it, and we need something to differentiate between intelligent robots and, well, robots that are just bodies that we remotely operate. And then why number 3 can change 2 to help with 1. How that's really hard, but obtainable, whereas creating robots is not, and how far away this all is from actually becoming a robot myself. Now, who of you has someone that relies on care in their life? So because they're elderly, like parents, grandparents, and so on. If so, please sit down. Very good. So we actually not so many here have experience with this. Who of you is older than 45? Please also sit down. So the old one gets to sit down first. All right. Who is more than 35? Also sit down. All right. The rest standing. We are the young ones. Okay, I'm 36, so that doesn't count anymore. I should have said 36. We are the young ones. We'll have to care for the ones sitting or the sitting ones know. And we have to talk about this. And now everyone gets to sit down. Thank you so much. All right, so this is the graph. Who of you knows what it is? Who has seen this before? Just hands up if you've seen this before. No one, okay. So this is obviously years, and this is numbers, and this is numbers of birth per 1,000 women in the US over time. Now, what is quite visible is this red mountain over here. And I think this is a very scary graph. It's really scary. And I hope you understand why once I'm done. All right, so 30 is the average age a woman gives birth in Germany. And this is the numbers of people in Germany that are currently getting money from the care insurance. And you can see that, and that's their age. So when I can see about 75, it really starts to, go up. So that's about the time the number of people requiring help in their life and care becomes a importance, because down here it goes down because people die. So that's 45 years. In between the 30 years and the 45 years. So 45 years later, on average, when you are 45, you have to care for your parents on average because they require care. Now, if you go back to this graph and we look at the people that are currently in this age band, 75 to 80 to 90 roughly, we see that they're in this gap. And 45 years later, so these are the people that are born in this area that are sort of currently caring for these elderlies. Now, if we move this by the same amount, what we're seeing is a slightly different picture. So we have somewhat less people, with a lot more people that have been born in this time frame. Now, what this means is we need about 60% more people caring for other people within the next 10 to 20 years. Now, this map here shows in red every state in Germany that has currently not enough caregiver to date. And this is the trend. And as you can see, so the one line that goes up and it looks like the beginning of an exponential curve is elderly in need of care. And the one that is more sort of more parallel to and not really growing is care workers. And now we could say, okay, yeah, but we can just import the care workers from Poland. And no, we can't. They have the same problem. Because in every developed country on this planet, what we've been seeing for the last 30 plus years is that the number of birth a woman gives falls below 2, which will by necessity lead to the problem that basically the number of young people is just a lot lower then and our population will be shrinking. So we have a lot of old people and less people to care for them. Well, so we just train more nurses. We just train more people doing the care because, of course, caring is such a valuable and giving job for society. Is it? Well, we pay shit. So it's one of the worst paid jobs. It's also one of those 24/7 jobs. Because it's not like you suddenly don't need care after 5 o'clock in the evening. And it's also a very heavy job. Have you ever interacted with someone that has this beginning of dementia, doesn't know anymore where they are and what they do? That's really tough. And this is also really tough for the people who have to care for them. And it's really manual work. So what does it mean? So it's all part of this job. It's one-to-one. Basically, you cannot just scale it. You cannot have one person suddenly care for 20 people. As I said, it's busy 24/7 every day in the year. It's emotionally, physically draining. And the efficiency gain potential of this job is really, really low. So that's why I think this graph is actually quite terrifying. But let's talk about robots. Because robots are going to steal all our jobs. So maybe, we can just take the robots and shift the jobs over. Because we all know the videos like this. Like Boston Dynamics doing this crazy motion. And I mean, you could probably do most of those motions. They can somersault, so I can't do that. But and that is super impressive. Really, really, really crazy research. Boston Dynamics has been basically optimizing what it takes to make a good robot body for the last more than 30 years. And this is massively impressive. But it's not going to solve our problem. So let's look at what others are doing. And I hope the sound works.
Bot Handy uses AI to understand objects,
wrong with sound.
like a glass cup or ceramic plate, taking note of their shape and material.
So you just don't hear it in here? Is there a way to make it audible in here?
To work as your trusted partner. Bot Handy can move around and do things like set the table.
Yeah.
Or put away groceries.
Ah, perfect. Okay.
It
All right.
flips the script
Okay, good.
on what a robot in your
All right. So this is this was announced or shown by Samsung this January at CES. Their newest robot.
Bot Handy uses AI to understand objects, like a glass cup or ceramic plate, taking note of their shape and materials to work as your trusted partner. Bot Handy can move around and do things like set the table or put away groceries. It flips the script on what a robot in your home could look like.
Very cool. So we're done, right? Mostly Bot Handy can do all we want. And I mean, they say could, so probably, but nonetheless, it looks pretty close. You can pour a glass of wine, move around, tidy up soft objects, put dishes in a dishwasher, set a table, put away groceries. Let's talk really quickly about putting away groceries. Just sort of understanding what it takes. It's pretty simple, right? We have objects, they're in a kind of container. We have a kitchen, and we want to have them in the fridge. That's very simple. So all you need is to, well, how do you go about it? So how do you tell the robot what each of those things is, where it gets them, how to grasp them, how much force it can apply, because if it's a soft thing, you can just crush it like you want to, where to grasp it, what to do in this space, how to navigate in this space, how to open a fridge door, and what to put where. And then in this fridge, how to realize where there's still space and what you can move around. Like if you think about what you're doing when you move around groceries, it's a really complex thing. And I want to do something more simpler first. So let's think about who knows what this is. All right, very good. I think most of us knows. So the task is pour 100 milliliter of warm water. How do we go about that? Like, how do we tell a robot that we want 100 milliliter of warm water out of this thing? So first of all, we need to know that it's actually something that they can do, but we can code this in a way, of course. So first of all, probably in the beginning, you want some kind of coordinate frame. So this is 3D space, it's in a 3D world. So you want to understand what is where. So let's just define two things, some grasping positions, magically appearing, let's call them P1, and P2 is where water comes out, whatever that means. And we as humans know that if you move this up, then more water will come, and we move it, and it will come out of here. And we can also rotate it. So let's try to be good programmers and program this. So first, we need to find this item in space. Right? We are a robot. It's somewhere in the kitchen, and it doesn't know. And let's assume the robot is already sort of in reach of this, and it needs to like somehow scan the world and then understand where a faucet is. So we say, okay, find item in space. You have a function that somehow does this magically, and it also understands what a faucet and what a kitchen is, so it knows which room. So it would probably say object and room or something like this. And now we need to actually find out, so it knows it's a faucet. We need to find out where the handle position is. So we have another function, we call it locate handle position. And then we also need the outlet because we need to understand where to put our glass. So locate outlet position. And then we need to move a glass. And then of course we already know where this P2 is. And so we want to have the glass about 10 centimeters below and Z is this axis. So we say, okay, this is where we want to have the glass, and we kind of magically understand how to move a glass. And now we need to open that faucet. And then, so okay, for this we need to apply a force. And for this force, it has to be at P1, and we kind of have a function that already understands how to grasp a handle. And You want to put this force into X direction, so over, so it gets warm, and we apply 2 newtons for 3 seconds. Then we also want to open it, of course. So we have a force that goes up, another 2 newtons. Let's hope the 2 newtons is good. Maybe it just doesn't open, who knows? And then we apply another 2 force, 2 newtons down, and another for 3 seconds. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Like everything about this can go wrong. Each of those steps is an absolutely non-trivial function. And what we haven't talked about it is that most of these forces actually can rotate around themselves. So you can just push it over, and your carefully understood faucet kitchen, your handle position is still at the same time place as the faucet position is not. And this is just one very small thing. And then, by the way, we call this affordances. So like what a thing can do is an affordance, so that this actually can have water come out is an affordance, and that it has a handle that can go up is an affordance. It's just a way of saying what you want. And now if you think about your flat, and then think about the flat of a good friend, and then one of your parents, how do the faucets look? Well, it's just different. And so we have a massively complex world where everything is kind of made for humans and not for robots, and we have no idea how to code it, and we already have understood that most of the things go wrong. And I'm not sure if you know this video, and I just want to show it to you because I think it makes it super clear again why this is kind of easy. So,
Dad, I'm done.
it's about making
Step
peanut
1,
butter sandwich.
get 2 pieces of bread out. Got 'em. Get a butter knife and get some PB. Take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
No, Dad, with the peanut butter.
I'm just doing what it says. It says take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
Hold on.
Get some jelly, rub it on the other half of the bread.
No, Dad, open the jelly.
Well, it doesn't say to do that. Put the breads together on top of each other. Take a big bite. This doesn't taste like a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to make it extremely specific.
Oh, good. I'm starving.
All right, you can imagine this is a 7.5-minute video. I have linked it in the very end. It's absolutely adorable, and it just tells you, it gives you a little bit of an idea how really hard this is. And like, he's a really, really good robot. In terms of robot world, he understands a lot. Like the robot is even a lot dumber than that. Now imagine, so we're still trying to unpack a robot into the fridge, right? And imagine this happens. So what's wrong with this picture, by the way? Has anyone an idea? What is wrong with this picture? Liquid spilled? No, it's actually not spilled. It's actually a fake. It's spilled ice black coffee, fake food prop. This is dry, and the robot could pick it up, no problem. Although it is somewhat transparent, but you know. So knowing about our world is really, really hard, and you just realize yourself that for you to know about the world is already pretty hard. So the real question is not, can Bot Handy drive around and do cool thing, but the real question is, can he know what goes where in the kitchen? How do you tell him? Well, how do you tell him what is for your kitchen, for your neighbor's kitchen, your friend's kitchen? How does he open cupboards? Which cupboards? Where cupboards? How? Think of all the different type of cupboards we have in our lives. How can you rummage around in them to fit new items in? How does he grasp a strawberry? How he gets stuff out of containers and bags and crush these bags and stuff them into the bin. Think about how much time you're spending, like when you're shopping, of trying to like put one of those plastic bags off a roll and fiddle it open and put stuff in it. And now imagine a robot doing that. And how do you know if food has expired? What is this even for a concept as expiration? You need to explicitly program this. and what to do with it. And then, of course, I mean, we're talking strawberries and spills. How does he mop this? And how does he wash its hand? How does he even know how to wash its hand? And what he needs to do so, and if he has to do it. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that we will not see robots in our homes really, really quick, because we just simply don't know how to solve all of this. And the other problem is, if you think about industrial robots, the cool thing about industrial robots is that we do the same things about 10,000 times. And it's pretty much the same and the same. Whereas here, you do a different thing every time. And this is called the Moravec's paradox. The Moravec's paradox says that encoded in the large, highly evolved sensory and motor portions of the human brain is 1 billion years of experience about the nature of the world and how to survive in it. The deliberate process we call reasoning is, I believe, the thinnest veneer of human thought, effective only because it is supported by the much older and much more powerful, the usually unconscious sensory motor knowledge. We are all prodigious Olympians in perceptual and motor areas, so good that we make the difficult look easy. Abstract thought, though, is a new trick, perhaps less than 100,000 years old. We have not yet mastered it, but it's not all that intrinsically difficult. It just seems so when we do it. So this Hans Moravec said this in 1998, and this is like one of the key things a roboticist fights with every day, because the expectations of what a robot should be able to do and what it actually is able to do not fit together. Or very simply said, this is easy and this is hard. So what can robots do? For example, they can move around. And they can move around in space quite reliably, because it is really easy to describe what moving around in space means. We have a coordinate frame, we can measure this, we can create a map to move in it, and we can plan move inside that map to move around. So this is why SLAM, which is called synchronous localization and mapping, is sort of mostly solved. And it's mostly because, I mean, if you're too fast, then you might, you create a lot of energy. I mean, this is why we don't have autonomous driving here, because if you if you fail, then it hurts. You need to calibrate a lot of things. It's a difficult environment. If it's a difficult environment, you have changing environments. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that Elon Musk is so ardent about not using their high-quality maps sort of as the ground truth. Because if you put something in a map and maps change all the time, it becomes a very brittle system, because you cannot react to the change. Then you have dynamic objects like people walking around, repeating environments. Fast is dangerous, and so on. So it's sort of in a sort of, as long as you move slowly in constrained environments with known variations in these environments, we're fine. Which is why you're seeing intralogistic robotics, a lot of agri-robotics, because there you have like really long lines and you're doing the same thing over and over. Robots that drive around and sort of are guard robots, and some slow delivery robots, the last mile delivery, but not so many robots in this kind of world that do interesting things. So I believe that if we want to bring robots into this kind of space, we need to bring the robots there before we bring the robots there. So how do we do this? Well, I'd say the concept is not robots, but robodies. So what's a robody? A robody is a passive robot that does not have any kind of its own intelligence, but it teleports the presence of an operator. So you can see, hear, talk, move, feel, act, interact through the robot, through this robody, and basically control its world. So you see, you hear, you talk. So okay, it's not perfectly. No. You can move, it copies the movements, it feels touch, force, smell, taste, and temperature. I mean, we sense a lot, and it's not so easy to understand what we are sensing. And of course, you need to transfer the data between the two. So let's see, where do we stand for this technology as humanity? Can we actually do this? Can we build robots that, connect a human into a robot? Well, good thing we have virtual augmented reality.
We are not the biggest fans of a full virtual reality in the pilot training, because of our genuine faith in the human's natural need of physicality, the authentic touch, response of a knob, sound
Sorry,
of an interaction, the feel of a cold switch. Joining forces with Vario, we present you the ultimate answer to the human nature in a simulated training, the most immersive implementation of the fighter jet cockpit simulator environment, the true mixed reality.
So this is, you're seeing two screens because one is for each eye.
With human eye resolution visual fidelity, you may not only interact with the real physical cockpit instruments, but study maps, charts, tablet, or even a screen of your phone when needed.
So if you ever get to try this, the Vario glasses, they're absolutely stunningly crazy. So we can transfer seeing. So we have cameras on one side of the glasses on the outside, and then the headset. So basically you just take the cameras and move it to the robot and we're done, more or less. I think we all, like, I don't need to show you that we can hear and talk. We've been using Zoom for the last 1.5 years enough, I believe. Can we move? Can we control movement? And how well can we do it?
So this is Jenga.
So this is,
many of you will play Jenga at various points. I always like playing it in pubs where they give you giant Jenga blocks, and when they fall over, everybody in the entire building knows you've screwed up. But these are just your normal standard size Jenga. So Joanne is just going to take out several blocks here. You could do this as a two-player Jenga. We're kind of quite entertained by the idea that when we get our next set of gloves, we'll have two people controlling the robot, taking it in turns. We could do that as well. We could do that with somebody on the ground and somebody remotely. I don't know if Alex is going to have a go as well at any point in this just to see if we could do competitive Jenga.
So I think motion, we have it kind of covered. I mean, she feels like whenever she touches the Jenga block. So now it's about force and about the skin. Who knows these two figures? Wow, very good, nice. So basically, these are the way or the amount of space in our cortex feeling and controlling the different parts of our body takes. So basically, our hands and our lips and our tongues take a lot more space to control than our eyes, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. To control and to feel, to perceive. So we are really, really hand-driven individuals. So what can we do about hands? How can we basically at least make hands feel? Where are we there? And so this is sort of the best that exists today. Again, so what this shows you, like it can give you a feeling of touch, but it can also deploy force, and that's not the same sensor in your skin. So touching and force resistance is two sensors. You also have temperature sensors and you have pain receptors. And unfortunately, they are all at the same place more or less in your skin. And then also you have your skin all over your body. So skin is really annoying to stimulate because, but that's why everyone focuses more or less on the hands, because this is such an important thing to stimulate. But then also you want to have, imagine you're having this robot and you want to carry something and the operator does this. What should be able to do this? Probably not. It should you should feel that there is something in between if you try to carry a box. And this is a paper that is just came out
Hello
from the
everyone,
University of
my
Bonn,
name is Christian Lenz and I'm presenting our work about bimanual telemanipulation. Hello everyone, my name is Christian Lenz and I'm presenting
Okay, it's not going to play. So basically what they're doing is they're using robots to generate external forces on the person. So they measure them, and then they also generate external forces so that you actually cannot do this because there's a robot actually pulling you back. So we can do force and touch okay-ish, but it's enough, as we've seen in the Jenga example, to really interact with the world. We do have more senses, smell and taste. It's really, really primitive so far. There's like some smell kind of, vaporizing, a bit of smell for your nose, but also the other side, like recognizing different smells is really, really hard, and it's also really primitive so far. And the coolest stuff on the market is using nanotechnology and really fancy things, and it's still far away of what an actual nose can do. Because our nose is not one sensor, it's actually an array of chemical sensors that can absorb all sorts of molecules and measure that. So this is really, really crazy. Just one thing that I kind of like to show you is like about temperature. And this is a recent paper from this year. And it's a virtual reality paper, but I think it's still. So basically, having some pepper vaporized into your nose makes you feel warm because it triggers your trigeminal nerve. And then if you use eucalyptol, it triggers the nerve in a different way and it makes you feel cold. So this is pretty smart if you think about it. What this means is we're actually pretty trickable. We can use all sorts of tricks to make us perceive things not the way they truly are. And there's a lot of these illusions, and they're not easy to trigger at some point, but it also means that we can see and perceive more than actual human can perceive. So what you're seeing here, for example, is microphone sound cameras. So this is the color coded here is actually not is sound that this can be localized and is projected on top of your augmented reality view. Or in this case, you see outside of the human spectrum, or over there, you could be using some sensors to measure pulse and other kind of biological features. So we can really like go beyond of what a human can perceive and transform it in a way so that the human can understand and help us better understand, better interact with the world that we as normal humans actually can. So now the only thing that's missing is transfer. And so if you look what the requirements are, so we're talking about 100 sensors at a kilohertz, that's about 6.4 megabits. If you really want 120 frames per second UHD, we're talking 120 megabits. 50 motors is around 11 megabits, and then the target motions, it's even lower. So in total, we're not even talking 200 megabits. I mean, this your internet can do today. And 5G actually has up to 10 gigabits upload and up to 20 gigabits download, and latencies in the range of way below 10 milliseconds. And this is all way enough, and you can even drive 500 kilometers per hour while you're locked into a 5G cell, meaning you could do this while driving a car or in a train or whatever. This is all basically being rolled out. This with a small asterisk, of course, because in reality, the network looks like this, and we all know this when we take the train. But luckily, there's this one guy that is a bit crazy that deploys satellites in space so that wherever on the planet you are, you have internet, and Starlink is actually good enough for telepresence. It has 40 megabits, uplink 120, down 40 milliseconds. That's more than enough, more than good enough for remotely operating a robot. So my point is, this is a viable technology. My point is, we can use this to actually control reality. And I'm seeing I'm running a bit out of time. It's good that I have linked all the videos in the end. So there's a competition, and I'm just back from it, from the semifinals of it, because we're a competitor in there. It's called the ANA Avatar X Prize. And just sort of a short idea what it's about.
We had internet, we had iPhones, now we'll have avatars.
The ANA Avatar X Prize is a $10 million competition that challenges teams to develop a physical robotic avatar system that can transport your senses, actions, and presence to a remote location in real time and feel as if you're actually there.
We'll be able to completely break through all of the barriers of distance, time, and cultures that exist in our world. I think that will allow us to unleash the full potential of humanity for the very first time.
Good. So this is Techday, a Japanese company, remotely controlling. Basically, it's sort of the how should I call it? The jackhammer worker from home. This is where they currently are. They actually doing this. They're going to space with this. They just recently sent one of those to space. This is a teleexistence. As you can see, they're really good at this. And that's also something I think it's quite interesting. If you look at the gripper they're using, they made a custom gripper to be able to grasp bottles so it gets easier. And this is of course things you can do quite easily because you don't actually have a human body that you work with, but you have a robot that you work with. There's a lot of tricks you can be playing in all the time. This is iBotics. With Eve, this is probably one of the most impressive, or if not the most impressive humanoid on the market right now, because it's actually on the market. So you can actually go and buy it. And they even have heat circulation.
Oh. Hello there.
Hello there.
Hey.
Hi.
Where am I?
You're in Oslo, Norway.
Who are you?
I'm Jesper, and you're?
I'm Robin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Robin.
Very cool. So this is Robot. This is my robot. What makes Robot special is that we try to imitate the human musculoskeletal system. That makes it very hard to control, but very easy to hug. But it's also mostly research that we are doing to understand how the human musculoskeletal system can be controlled. And I had a really bad day.
Max, good to see you. How are you?
Yes. Good, very much so. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm alive. It's nice for you to come by.
The robot can grasp the balls and so on. I have to move it on a bit. So, and taking all of this together and projecting this back into care, this could be the vision of how this goes about. It's not in German, but I mean, most of you I think speak German, so I think it should be okay.
Warum du hier bist? Nun, ich hätte nie gedacht, dass nach dem Tod meines Vaters sich noch jemand an die Wäsche meiner Mutter machen würde. Sie war damals ja doch bereits 75. Alles begann im Jahr 2020, also vor gut 10 Jahren, als das Coronavirus die Welt in Schach hielt. Franzi, meine Mutter, war damals häufig alleine zu Hause. Die täglichen Strapazen wurden immer größer und ihre Freiheiten wurden eingeschränkt. Doch ins Pflegeheim, da hätten sie keine 10 Pferde hingebracht. Lieber wäre sie gestorben. Beinahe wäre sie ja dann gestorben in diesem Winter. 8 Stunden lag sie auf dem Boden. Und es war reiner Zufall, dass der Nachbar sie fand. Wir hatten dann das Glück, an einer Studie mit Pflegeroboter Robot teilnehmen zu können. Zu Beginn war der Roboter auf 4 Rädern und ziemlich ungelenk, aber es wurde schnell besser. Das Einrichten einer Videokonferenz auf ihrem Tablet war nun ein Kinderspiel. So konnte sie sogar an der Taufe ihres Enkels mit dabei sein. Ihr betreuender Arzt führte über Robot Ferndiagnosen durch. Unkompliziert und einfach. Oft blieb sogar noch Zeit für ein Schwätzchen. Natürlich kam die Spitex weiterhin vorbei. Einfach, manchmal auch virtuell. Doch das tägliche An- und Ausziehen der Stützstrümpfe, das Waschen, das Bett machen, das erledigte der Pflegeroboter. Tja, und so kam es, dass seit 2020 regelmäßig ein Roboter meiner Mutter an die Wäsche geht. Und darum bist du hier, weil es uns alle überzeugt hat.
Pflegeroboter? Hat man uns damals wirklich so genannt? Pflegeroboter? Ja, das hat man.
Das finde ich herabwürdigend. Ich fühle mich in meinem Stolz verletzt.
Good. So let's go back to care. Doing a round trip in this talk. So we said nursing is not very attractive for the reasons that it's badly paid, long hours, it's really emotionally taxing, and it's very manual work. So what about we created 10x Nurse? 10x Nurse is well paid, has flexible working hours, has a support network of people that you can rely on whenever it's needed, and she can even work, or he can even work from home. Well, how would this work? Of course, we have the 10x Nurse, and on demand jumps into a robot. So whenever you're being cared for and you have one of those robots at home, you get the care when you need it, and not when your daily slot is actually allotted. So you have the experience of 24/7 care, but not necessarily you don't pay as much for it because it's more effective, because the 10x Nurse can control many robots or robots at the same time. You can pull in a doctor whenever you need it. So say in the morning you discover sort of a blue spot. Is this now decubitus? Does it need to be treated? Well, just call your doctor in. And there's joins in the VR. We can have observing people through the night with intelligent alarms, and whenever something is and the alarm is triggered, the 10x Nurse just jumps into that robot and looks at what's going on. You can also pull in family, and for those who ever had to care for someone who has dementia with aggressive tendencies, this is really important. So my girlfriend's grandma, she now has dementia, and she has these kind of super these bursts of aggressiveness, and she has like one of those Polish 24/7 care workers for her that looks after her, and she can't handle that because she doesn't know where this aggressiveness is coming from. And it's actually part of her history of things she has experienced 30 years back. But of course, the mother of my girlfriend, she knows, and she can talk to her out of it in the right way, and doesn't actually need to be with robotics, wouldn't have to need to be nearby. In this case, she had to go over, drive half an hour there, and make sure that together they could calm her down. And while we're at it, if you have a robot in one home and a robot in another home, well, you can have an elderly network of elderly people that are talking to each other and are less lonely. So the 10x Nurse is a vision where it's a totally new job. It's well paid because you no longer do one-to-one care, but one-to-many care. And some aspects of that care process can be automated. There's totally flexible working hours because who said you need to be in the same time zone? You have a support network because it can pull in doctors, experts, and family whenever it's needed. And you can even do it from home because the operator system is really easy to set up wherever you are. Now, going back to the original title of my talk, Becoming a Robot or How Teleportation Will Solve Aging. I hope you believe me now that that robots and a telepresence is a way that we can help us. So it's not going to solve it on its own, but can help us solve the aging crisis. And I said in the beginning, I want to become a robot, but I'm also out of time. So there's in the second part that I'm only teasing to you. We're going to be talking about brain-computer interfaces. We're going to be talking about our robots that are being used to grow tendons, human tendons that will be implanted at some point in the future into humans, and many other things that are necessary on the way from where we are today into becoming a robot in the future. If you are interested to hear this talk, or if you want the playlist with all the videos that I could only sort of briefly jump to, go to www.kong.re, the gate part you can leave away. There you can also add me on LinkedIn or on Twitter or whatever. You can sign up for this part 2, where I'm going to talk about this. Who knows when it is? It's basically also a function of interest. I'm talking a lot on robotics and medtech, and we are currently raising a seed round for bringing this technology to market because I think it's just too important a challenge that needs solving. So if you know any kind of investors that are interested in going this crazy round, let me know. So take out your phone, go to kong.re, and thank you so much. And now it's time for questions. Yes. Yeah, we had MERS. You can do it at the 200 milliseconds as well. It's just like it gets a lot. I mean, your capability just degrades. There's also this was, for example, this is a thesis we had from a student. There's ways of making you tolerate higher levels of latency by slowly getting used to it. So like faking latency and increasing it over time makes you more tolerant towards it. And it actually feels more present, although the latency is relatively high. So 40 milliseconds, I mean, of course, you get much more competent as you're slower. Also, one important aspect is if you think about how you control your body, and if we want to copy this onto a robot, because we are measuring this externally and not from your brain directly, you can only start measuring once you start moving. So there's already a delay in there because we need to sort of recognize how you start moving and then sort of copy this into the robot, and the robot can only start moving after you've already started moving. So there's necessity, a delay in there, which is in the area of 100 to 200 milliseconds on its own already.
Anyone from here? If not, I have a question.
Following up on the latency thing, isn't there also a, well, both with latency and with perhaps unsteady connections, an issue where there could be serious security implications because the haptic feedback that will hold you back maybe doesn't respond quickly enough and you might like break someone's spine or something?
Yes, definitely. This is why like what's being developed at the end by us and also in this one paper that I showed you is controllers that understand what the sort of the current tolerable maximum forces are and basically limit them to make sure that this, and of course this is a problem. You can always say, okay, so latency drop, but it's also one thing you want to do, right? If you have an actual drop, you want to stop the robot. That's one thing, and then the other, what's nice about 5G, you can actually get latency guarantees. So you're not going to get any drops, ideally. Well, yeah, that part is really hard, but like you can sort of have you can configure end-to-end network slices that give you guarantees in terms of communication speed. I mean, this is how you do these remote surgeries, for example. Yeah.
Really great vision. But I'm wondering how high do you expect the capabilities of an operator have to be for such a remote system? Is it so easy than just doing what we are used to work with our body, or are the operators, do they need a lot of training? How do you expect this in the future?
So it's a good question, of course. We had a class of 10 students, children in the age of between 10 and 14 on the Maldives, controlling our robot in Munich, and they learned it in about 5 minutes each. So it's really intuitive. Of course, there's limitations to that. I mean, especially if you want to really capable, it of course helps if you understand the system's dynamics and how this changed over time. But because the system is really sort of copy pasting what you're doing, quite a lot of your muscle memory and all of this, you start at a very different point than when you sort of, like classical teleoperation was with a joystick, for example. But there, your brain needs to do coordinate transformation between what it's seeing and it's then purely visual serving. Whereas here, you can basically take all the proprioceptive sensing of your body, and this helps a lot. And it is really, really, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And that's why also it's one of the reasons it makes sense to build these robots with human morphologies. So like make it into 2 arms with human size, the length more or less of that of a human arm, so that it becomes really intuitive. It's much easier, like for you, and much less taxing for the brain also.
Okay, there's a question online. If your 10x nurse is similar to having a nurse in a care home level, but providing out care instead of in care, if so, would because of the high cost of the robot, would this maybe just become an option only for those with greater financial options? Question from Brage.
This is of course a very good point, because I mean, at the end of the day, so the full story is that once you have the 10x nurse deployed in outpatient homes or in homes, you start to collect lots and lots of data. So what you can do over time is you can start learning things and start to do some automation, and that's where it over time becomes relevant also for inpatient care. But we're talking, I think, 10, 15 years. But I think this is sort of it's just a way of getting the robots deployed so we can actually collect the data and start all this learning that's necessary, so that at some point we have a system. But of course, yeah, the 10x nurse cannot be a lot more efficient than an inpatient nurse that is basically already taking care for 10 people. But we can use technology and bringing in the doctor and all of these kind of things still make it valuable. And also like for relatives to be able to connect to their loved ones in an elderly care center, this is valuable.
Thanks. I also have my own question. Do you think that the human level robotics will become available before human level AI?
I think it's the same.
Because currently, yeah, it's also, I'm not quite sure what is even on a higher level right now. I think AI in some ways.
I think what you're seeing right now is that everyone that kind of had this very high hopes is currently divesting from AI, like using AI for robotics. Like Google stopped using it, or not. I mean, they're still having this in this. They just actually created a company in Munich from a Google X project, but sort of this research side they also removed. Then OpenAI stopped using robots. They had this solving a Rubik's Cube learning solution, and they completely scratched that because they realized that robotics is not just the control part. Robotics is also building good robots, and that's on its own already pretty hard. So probably we'll have. Yeah, I mean, I can't make any good predictions on AGI. I could, I think.
Nobody can.
Yes.
I don't think.
There's a lot more, much more competent people that already can't make good predictions on that. So.
Yeah. The other question would be why. So Daniel didn't quite get why we're solving aging twice.
Oh, because that's the second time of solving it is actually the definite solving. And that's becoming a robot and then live indefinitely. That's the one I'm solving with my life, but this is a 40, 50, I don't know how many decades thing. So we're solving it once as a care crisis, and the twice is then the one, the definite one.
For yourself.
For you, well, not just myself,
but ourselves. I mean, yeah. Not just for the older people.
Yeah, doing something for your own, just for yourself, is a pretty bad market.
Yeah.
So for the care crisis, you will need like millions of robots, right? Do you have any potential partners in the industry for mass fabrication?
It's not yet our main problem. We are. I mean, what is good about the problem is we have a very well-established network of tier 1 to tier 3 producers. Because if you think about it, robots are very, very close to cars. And this is also why I'm dead sure we can get the price down, because we can produce cars for 1,000 people and the complexity is no different. So it's actually not much different. So it's just a question of scaling. And so the really hard thing about robots and robotics is really showing the business case and showing that the business case works. Scaling robots is excruciatingly hard because of the business side. And the tech side. Yeah.
How weird is it for a person to be cared for by such a robot? Are there like any psychological studies on if it makes like a difference?
It's actually a lot less weird than being cared for by a real robot, because there's not a person on the other side. So there's you're connecting to the person through that machine, and you understand that you're talking to a real person on the other side, and that makes a huge difference. So for like, if you really understand that what you're having in front of you is a machine that is basically a proxy for that person that you interact for the actual nurse. And there's no real study yet, or this is a big question also of usability and user experience design, how to bake this in the way that it's the least weird. But what we see, for example, with Roboy is the fact that you can really truly hug it and it's really safe to use it makes a big difference. People are always like this. We have been on more than 100 events and fairs of Roboy, so there's tens of thousands of people who interact with it. And you can really see as soon as you tell them, you're allowed, hey, just touch it, it's safe. And they start touching it, and then they start take a selfie, their fear goes away from the system because the things we're allowed to touch are things that we feel are safe. And that makes a huge difference, and that helps. But it's a big field and a lot to do. And I know.
Last short question.
Oh, yeah, it's really hard question. Sorry for that. I really liked your talk.
Thank you.
From a technology perspective, I was wondering about ethics. So for you and your company, do you have any hard rules or boundaries regarding ethical questions which you would, for example, never break? Or how do you decide
no military.
how that goes? Sorry.
No military. I do not work with anything that's connected to defense. Because I think it's too easy to, like, we're seeing this with the drone wars. It's just so easy to dehumanize what you're doing through the drones. And of course, you're much more present, but like that is something like remote soldiers is something I would never want to be a part of. So this is definitely nothing we would want our technology to be seen in.
I think that's a great closing statement. Let's save lives, don't destroy lives. Thank you for your talk.
Yes.